Hey everybody, in this video, I'm going to go over how I approach making like looping scores that I can use in little games that I make. Um, it's nothing real fancy, but I'm just going to kind of go over the process that I use. I use pretty much, I'd say all free software in creating the scores, and you could do it all for free. The only thing that I used that I had to pay for basically was a little MIDI keyboard that I have. I use, well, I'll pull it up here in a minute, but I use a little Arturia Mini Lab. It's a little tiny MIDI keyboard that lets you do. It's just a MIDI keyboard, and you can do input from that into MuseScore. It's not like full MIDI capability in MuseScore. Basically, what it lets you do is record notes using the keys on the MIDI. So yeah, so let's take a look at how I do that on the keyboard, and then we'll come back and I'll kind of discuss how I do the organization and the chord progression a little bit. Okay, so when I go and do the chord progressions, I basically do, like I showed earlier, as I find the chord that I want, and then kind of use that as my root chord, and kind of build a chord progression off of that. And it helps. I mean, I used to do music a little bit, and I had a lot better understanding of the music theory behind why how certain chord progressions work. A lot of that has slipped my mind over the years, and so I just have kind of a rough idea about how chord progressions are supposed to work. And somehow I'm able to pull all of that crap together into something that works. So I take that and kind of build a chord progression off of it. In this case, it's kind of an arbitrary number of measures that I've used. But I'll come up with I think in this case it's something like 12, 13 measures or something, and it kind of builds a chord progression, and that's what it sounds like. So I guess I can go ahead and play it and kind of show you what the first few measures sound like. Okay, so that's kind of what the first bit sounds like, and I'm not very creative, and I need the thing to loop anyway, so I basically just duplicate all of those. I take those 12, 13 measures, I duplicate it, and copy and paste it, which is basically a lot of what I do. So you can see right here on this little, gosh, I forgot what this is called, fermata, I start a new the same chord progression over again, but this time I add in a new instrument, so I add in the synth. I forget what kind of synthesizer this is, a sine synthesizer, and then I drop it a couple octaves down to just kind of give it that bass sound, and it gives it a more full, it just makes the sound more full and kind of gives it a little bit more power. And this is, in addition to the chord progression, this is something that gives it a little bit more intensity to the track. And yeah, so I basically am taking the first note, I think it's like the bottom note, and then dropping a couple octaves down, and then just doing that all the way down the entire thing. So yeah, so I did that for all 12, 13 measures, and then this is what that sounds like. I guess we'll back up a couple of measures so we can hear it drop in. So you can kind of hear the difference there. And because I don't know, whenever I was making this, I was kind of making a bunch of I made like a melody to go along with it, and then I decided that the melody was a little too fast paced. It sounded a little chaotic. And when you're playing a game, you don't want to get caught up in the game score, like the score to the game, so much as you want to get um, immersed in the game itself. So you want something that's not too distracting to the player, and I feel like this isn't that distracting compared to what I had before, at least. I mean, it's not perfect, but it works. The other thing is, like, I don't know, like whenever I've played video games before, like there are sometimes like just distracting soundtracks. Like you can be really gifted at making a game and not know how to make a soundtrack, and I'm not perfect at making soundtracks, but I feel like it's at least not distracting. And also, this is very simple. So if I want to make a little mini game, this is like the fastest thing I can go in and make. I think I made this track in it was like 20-30 minutes. It really wasn't that long. So anyway, the third part is again copy and paste that same chord progression over, and then add in I think this is, what is this bass called? Crap, I forgot what this bass style is called, but it's basically the first note, fifth. It's basically an alternation of I think it's Alberti. It's like an Alberti bass style, basically. So I take this chord and then you break it up, and this is what that sounds like. Or we'll start back here again. Again, it's just using the exact same chord and just breaking it up, and I used a different synthesizer. I used a bass synthesizer and raised it up several octaves. You can kind of use some of these instruments for stuff they're not intended for, just to get different sounds. And I'm sure if you're using an actual digital audio workstation, you'll get some packages in there that have a lot of sounds built in, and you can probably get better sounds than I can generate using MuseScore, but hey, it's free. So yeah, so the last thing I did is on the last measure, I kind of broke it up a little bit. Instead of doing the Alberti bass all the way through, I just stop it on that third beat. And then I just started over again. So you can see that the entire thing loops. I think the entire thing is probably about 2 minutes or something like that. So it gives you about a minute of not the same thing. But this is a simple way you can go in, create a little chord progression, and then you basically copy and paste it, do a couple things with it that make it sound not so monotonous. And then once you are finished with that, you can go in. And you notice I don't use all of these instruments, so honestly I could go here and remove a bunch of them. You just hit I and you can go in and remove the ones that you don't use. So I don't think I ever used whatever this is, so I can remove that. Use my brass, halo. I can remove all of that stuff. So anyway, I'm just doing this after the fact, but I should have done it a while ago. Okay, so that cleans it up a little bit, and does it though? Okay, yeah, so that cleans it up a little bit, maybe makes the score a little easier to look at. So there we go. I can't think of anything. Oh yeah. So the other thing I was gonna say is you can go and you can export either the full score. You can also export the individual. You can export the individual instruments, so you can select. I think you can select which instrument or whatever or synthesizer that you want to export, and you can export just those measures. And doing that allows you to export. Let's see, I have 3 different instruments. I can go export all 3 of those, and then go into something like Audacity. And if I want to make any more changes to the sound, if I want to do like some more editing on it, or if I want to clip some parts out, or I want to cut it shorter, whatever it is that you want to do, you can take it into Audacity, other free software, and you can get it to work in there. So this is how I go in and make looping video game scores. I even do this not just for video game scores. I have a couple of like little short animations that I like to put scores to, or if I want to just play around with a concept, I like coming in and mocking it up in MuseScore, just using little MIDI keyboard, and it does a great job for for free software. So anyway, yeah, so that's how I do that. If you guys have any questions, put them down in the comments. As always, please like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.